Rocking an LGN look at lightning speed. Here's your look at the Super 7 Thundercats Cheetara toy version. The brave and noble Cheetara is the fastest of the Thundercats and possesses the ability to run with lightning-fast speed. Though she's often the voice of reason, Cheetara is also an agile fighter. Her speed is particularly formidable when combined with offensive attacks from her bow staff. Furthermore, Cheetara possesses a sixth sense, a mystical psychic ability which enables her to sense evil and have visions of the past and the future. Even though this was a rabbit hole I had convinced myself I was never going to be traveling down, yet nonetheless, here we are looking at, once again, the LGN toy version of Cheetara, courtesy of the folks over at Super 7. I already have picked up the toy version of Lino, to which I'll also bring him in for comparisons, and I'm sure now that I've already started to pick up Lino and now picked up Cheetara, I will likely be continuing to pick up the toy versions as they start to materialize. Speaking of materializing, it's a weird segue, as we're about to measure off Cheetara here. If you guys are interested to pick up the toy version of Cheetara and haven't had any luck to find her in the wild, you can certainly click the link down below. It'll take you over to Entertainment Earth's website, to which I actually did find this figure. They had both toy version of Cheetara and they had Mumra, although I missed my chance to get Mumra. I have to go back and see if they have it stocked again. Anyways, though, the toy version of Cheetara stands 6 inches in height, and that works out to be a figure that's 15 centimeters tall. Seeing as we already did get ourselves a Cheetara, I want to bring her in right now for comparisons. The one that we had already looked at before was heavily influenced again by the 80s cartoon. The one that we're about to have a look at is heavily influenced again by the LGN 80s toy line, which again, there was some color corrections certainly made from that to the cartoon. The obviously changes of the head are one thing that's very apparent between the two figures, but other than that, it does look like they are sharing the same body molds, torsos, legs, and limbs, and all the things that go along with that look to be the same shared things between the two figures. Speaking of LGN figures, here's also what the figure looks like along with Lord Lino, a figure we had already had a look at. And again, while the bodies are going to be the same ones shared with the cartoons, these ones, the colors that they used again, are more reminiscent of the 80s toy line, not necessarily of the cartoon itself. A bit bare bones are the accessories that get packaged with old Cheetara here. Unlike the cartoon release that would have had episode-specific accessories, Cheetara in this case actually gets a series of interchangeable hands, a swapped-out brand-new head sculpt, and of course her bow staff. The original LGN release of Cheetara either got packaged singularly along with her bow staff, or if you were lucky enough as well to pick up the 2-pack, then she'd get packaged along with Wily Kit. Tiger would have got packaged with Wily Cat. I do wish in some ways that they could have included a version of Wily Kit. Not maybe one that was posable, but similar to the original one that would have been before, would have been more like a statue, where Wily Kit would have been permanently attached onto her display stand. I do wish that they could have included something along those lines. But what they did do, though, differently, was that they included a brand new inspired head sculpt, something that wasn't obviously packaged with the original figure. And again, similar to what they would have done with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toy line as well, they have the Cheetara looking like stock out of the box, a more articulated version of the original LJN release, but then they also do the bells and whistles of throwing in a brand new head sculpt as well. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. First, the figure comes included with a bow staff. The staff does look to be the exact same as the one that came included with the cartoon version of Cheetara. Proof is in the pudding, so we'll of course bring that in right now so you can see. I did think for a second that the LJN version of Cheetara had maybe a slightly thicker bow, but I think it's maybe just more my eyes playing tricks on me. One is more the metallic gold, one is kind of more of just a very matte light yellow, and of course they are about the same length to one another as well. It's likely the case that they are using the exact same mold. I can't imagine that they would just simply be, coming up with a brand new mold for that staff. She does have the means to hold the staff, although I did, in this case, change one of the hands out so she could actually hold it. Speaking of hands, the figure comes included with a pair of flat hands, if that's the way you want. Really good, ideally, for if you wanted to have the character looking like she's running. These would be good for, like, running hands. The figure also comes included with a gestured hand, which essentially is the hand that's currently on the right side of the figure's body. I simply just popped that one off, and I replaced it with one of these. She also does come included with a pair of gripping fists, although in this case, the gripping hand I did use for this side to, of course, have her holding the staff. The figure does have some problems falling over. We'll talk more about that in a moment. The figure also comes included with a pair of closed fists. So if you wanted to be punching mutants, I guess you have the option to do that as well. Then, like I said, the figure does come include with a swappable head sculpt as well. Picking up the defaulted head as we can see it right now. This very heavily influenced again by the original LJN release of Cheetara. It doesn't really look that much different from the original one that we did get from before. Bright colors of the yellow now in her hair. Big large spots of black. And again, the trademark face paint, or not really the face paint, but of course the printing that she has on her face, just to bring in the Cheetara that we had looked at before so you can see the difference between the two. And it's definitely not simply just a case where they would have just cheated and used this existing head sculpt and painted it closer in the more brighter colors that LJN would have released her initially. I'm glad to see that they did actually shorten the hair, so you can see like the hair is a little bit molded differently. It's kind of more closer to her head than the more crazier hair that she has on the cartoon version of her. But it looks to be obviously the case that they are sharing the exact same bodies to one another. The torsos and limbs seem to be exactly the same, right down to the boots also as well. Now, if you don't like this specific head sculpt, although again, this one is more based on the original 80s toy, then there is also this version also as well, which doesn't change too much from this one. So I'm glad to see that they didn't take too far of a departure. You can see the hair is about the same, but she does have a little bit more playfulness, almost as if looking like she's going to go and start a fight with somebody. To change the heads out are fairly easy to do. You're just going to hold onto the torso, wiggle the head and remove it, detach it from the ball joint, and then place the new head on top of it. Again, while I do like this head sculpt, the whole idea of me actually picking up this toy line in the first place, the toy versions of these figures, is the fact I really did want to have them look more like the toys, like the original ones from the 80s. I like that they included at least this head sculpt as an option, an alternate option available if you want to display the figure like this. But for me, I feel like it's almost defeating the purpose. I almost would have said, use the plastic for this, also, although you would have needed to use a lot more plastic. Use the same amount of plastic, or maybe just a little bit more, to actually mold a little statue of Wily Kit that could have come included with Cheetara. But again, like, just to show you the difference between the two head sculpts, if I can pick this one up right here, colors are going to be exactly the same. The only thing that's really different, again, is the expression on her face. Her eyes are a little bit more squinted, her mouth looking a little bit more, I don't want to say sinister, but it definitely is a different type of expression than she has kind of starting off with. For the rest of the figure's body, it's pretty much, again, just the same Cheetara as what we did get from before, but brighter colors are really handled here. Instead of kind of more the tanned browns that we got here for the front of her outfit, she kind of has more, again, that classic looking orange color. The cat's symbol, again, is more brightly handled. It actually seems to be also corrected. I had a real issue with this version of Cheetara where the cat symbol was too low on the circle, whereas actually this one is dead center. The arms are also one thing that's a little bit more brighter colored, not only in the actual arms, but the gauntlets also as well. Leggings seem to be the same, and as already mentioned, like the boots are going to be exactly the same as well. The figures do have peg holes in the undersides of their feet, but again, like none of the figures have yet to come include with display stands, which I really do think is one thing that Super 7 is missing the mark on, not to include display stands, so they kind of have some like similar things when it comes to displaying the figures. All the Thundercats, for example, could have Thundercats logos. All like the Silverhawks, for example, could have Silverhawk logos. I do really think that they need to start to include display stands. Not that it's a big deal breaker, but it'd just be nice to see that they could have included display stands. For the figure's articulation, let's start with, well, we're going to stick with this head sculpt for right now. Head rotates all the way around. It does look down, and it does look up, and it does rock back and forth fairly easy as well. The arms come out easily as well. They're on single hinge joints. You can take those arms and rotate them all the way around. She has a single hinge on the elbow, a rotation on the forearm, and she has rotations in the hand. Just to pause myself here for a second, one thing I did want to say about the hands, there's always seems to be something loose on these Super 7 figures. It's always either a leg, it's always either a knee, or it's, in this case for Cheetara, loose elbows. I have not had this figure out of the packaging very long at all, nor have I spent a lot of time to play with her either. She should not be this loose immediately getting her out of the box. She's not loose to the point where the arm's going to start to droop, but it's definitely loose when I noticed it right taking it out of the packaging. Upper torso is on, again, on that ball joint. It really is less a ball. Well, I mean, it does hinge down a little bit better, but it doesn't go further back at all, nor can you really rock it around. You can rotate it, though, all the way around. The figure's legs, once again, seem to be on hinge joints, but this one leg I cannot get to move. I'm probably going to have to take a little bit of hot water or even just take a hairdryer. It looks like it's stuck in place. Now, you may be asking yourself, why didn't you do this before you actually started to do the review? I think in a case like this, I want to draw your attention to any issues that I may actually have with the figure. And in this case, it doesn't look like it actually moved the leg. If you actually look at it, if I can actually show you what it looks like inside, see how this leg has a hinge joint right there? But if you look at this leg, it looks like the leg was assembled wrong. I don't see an actual hinge. What I see instead seems to be a peg. So they're using like a peg system on this side and a hinge joint on this side. Clearly, it was misassembled wrong in the factory. I mean, I can still easily move it forward and back, but I can't do a splits on Cheetara, at least on not this side. So even if I actually went back to heat this with a hairdryer or hot water, it's not like I would have fixed the problem. So again, like there seems to be some misassembly when it came to my version of Cheetara. The legs still manage to hinge. There's a single hinge on the knee. You can rotate them back and forth with the lower leg. She has no articulation here in the boots, but she does still manage to move her feet up and down this way. And you can also ankle rock them as well. Short of maybe the misassembly on the top of the thigh of Cheetara, she's not a bad looking, again, figure. I think for me, at least, again, when it comes to displaying these figures, what I'm going to do, like I did with Lino, though, I think I'm going to display the figure. There's Cheetara, by the way, on the other side. Actually, you know what? Let's just move the figures on either side. And then we'll again bring in toy version of Lino so you can see one last time. Lino also, I did have a problem with too. The tops of his thigh, I think from what I've seen from other reviews, the thigh should be sitting a lot higher than what it is. Mine, for some strange reason, sit a little bit lower on the legs on Lino. So there always seems to be some level of QC problems when it comes to these figures. Unfortunately, though, with Cheetara, while I can move this one leg out, I can't do the same thing then on the other side. Again, when it comes to the displaying of these figures, I think I'm going to default back to the idea of displaying Cheetara with this head sculpt, simply because it's the closest in proximity to the original LJN release. While I do appreciate the fact that they would have included this head sculpt, I mean, it's fine for people that did want to have a slightly more modern look to the original 80s toy. I would rather have it more closer to the 80s toy, the whole reason why I wanted to pick up the figure in the first place. I mean, I can't fault Super7 for wanting to include a secondary, more modern head sculpt for Cheetara here. I mean, it gives them first of a chance not to be locked into the idea that 100% this toy has to be looking like a more articulated version of the original LJN release of Cheetara. By including that secondary head sculpt, it gives them a chance to kind of give their own take of what Cheetara could look like with a more modernized looking toy. Plus, as well, I've seen a lot of Thundercat collectors online that have actually put their toy versions of the Thundercats figures on the shelves with the newer head sculpts. And if anything, I would be sounding like a hypocrite as well, because I have been guilty of picking up the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Super 7 Ultimate figures and in fact swapping out the head sculpts. The ones from the original Playmates toys, I've swapped some of them in fact over to the more modern head sculpts that Super 7 pack along with it. So I really can't say that I would be boycotting the idea of using modern heads with the Thundercats, when in fact I've been guilty of doing it with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Ultimate figures that we've gotten before. What do you guys think of the toy version of Cheetara? And also, if you have been collecting the Super 7 Thundercats Ultimate figures, could you see yourself also going down the same similar rabbit hole that the person behind the camera has also done as well by picking up the toy versions? Or are you pretty much settled on the idea of only collecting the cartoon versions of the Thundercats? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Also, as well, if you guys are interested to pick this up for yourself, this, as well as the other Thundercats, are available over on Entertainment Earth's website. I'll provide the link down below to the video description. And also by using the link provided, it'll also save you 10% off on any in-stock items. That's whether that's Thundercats or not. Anything that's in stock over on Entertainment Earth, you can save 10% by using the link down below. Also, as well, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and on board to see more, then make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and that you're also turning on the bell notification. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.